Okay, so we kind of divided this up into 4 different parts. And the first part was thinking about how to recruit volunteers. And so we kind of did a little bit, we talked a little bit about kind of the 2 groups of people. There are the young people, like the 15 to 22-year-olds, and then there are older people, like us. And so we thought we could leverage existing corporations and nonprofits that often give people a day of service or a couple days of service where they can take off work and do some sort of activity as a group. And a lot of these companies have affinity groups or like a Jewish affinity group, and that might be a great way to reach out to people. And then we also thought about using meetup.com. So anyone can create a meetup, but it's like a group of people who have a shared interest in something. And that's a great way to reach older people. And then for younger people, we thought about leveraging summer camps and synagogues and Hillels, and then also a lot of high schools have service clubs where you have to get service hours, and that's a great way to get the younger population involved.
So ways that we talked about revamping the Fellows program was similar to the last group. We thought that Fellows should serve as service facilitators between organizations in the community that have existing service projects or service needs, and then connecting them to the volunteers. And we talked about as well that they need to have a deep and strong knowledge of the needs of that community. And so being from that community would be a plus, or at least from that city or area. And so that's the second point, was that they need to be focused on building relationships within the community. So if they already are well connected, whether they've already been volunteering or connected to different Jewish or service organizations, they would have outlets already existing. And then, so they're basically being the liaison between the volunteers and the service projects.
You want me to? Just one note on the previous one, that is still like a very regional-based fellow structure, like the last group. The marketing, we're again going back to the online presence. I don't know how you're going to get around that if you want to reach a national audience. We really thought about like how to create sort of, I guess in my mind, there's like a very intense back-end investment in technology and an algorithm that matches volunteers to appropriate service opportunities. We start with a social focus in the actual engagement, the service opportunity, and that's just to get people meeting up and networking with each other, just to create that comfort and that dynamic.
If I could jump in, it's just we thought it might initially start with some sort of social event. So like we thought maybe gathering people that are young professionals that just moved to a new city, and you could do like a themed neighborhood tour, and be very explicit that the expectation is that everybody on the tour would end with a service project at some point, but just to engage people. So you could do like tour on tap for a night, where if, like I moved to Nashville last year, I think I would have been interested in grabbing a friend of mine to go to something like that, to meet new people that are outside of my organization, because I still don't have, Jewish friends in my city, and I think that would be a great way to pull me in, and then just be very explicit that it will end in a service project.
Yeah, and then on top of that, there's a lot of successful models out there. We were thinking, again, a little creatively, maybe something equivalent to Idealist, which would be Jewlist, and then maybe some type of like app development where you get like a daily opportunity, like Jupon.
So like an email that would have a daily service opportunity that could be a short project that you could like drop off some canned food items on your way home from work. So ways that you would like constantly be reminded of this organization on a day-to-day basis.
We'll do the next 2 slides really quick. We got like 30 seconds. Financially, I think the goal is, contrary to what a lot of people are saying, I think you want to drive down the number of fellows in your region. And the reason is because the cost of acquisition with a strong technological platform is going to lower the cost overall. And I think you could actually get 1 or 2 fellows, even like in a very major city, to develop a lot of meaningful service opportunities. then make it realistic for you, going for like a couple bucks. And then lastly, the 2 dimensions that we talked about for like volunteer characteristics, we sort of parsed out age, and again, there's plus and minus. And then duration, there's service days, there's more long-term engagements, and then there's also very immersive ideas.
Great.
So, among the 4 areas, recruitment, fellows model, marketing, and the financial model, which do you think is most important?
I think the ways that you reach your volunteers and how you keep them returning. So your marketing towards your volunteers, I would say.
So it's sort of the recruitment / marketing.
Combination
Yeah.
of both, for sure.
You can get deeper with talking about Jewish values and service once you have that critical mass of people that are connected to the organization and have a stake in it. And like once, you know, people go on a GPARN kind of adventure together, they'll be more likely to tell their friends, we did this, it was really fun. And, you know, once you get that critical mass, then you can work on getting deeper in terms of the Jewish values.
I think something to be careful about with that argument is like reaching the critical mass. I think you're gonna do that through investing in technology though. I don't think you can just sort of like rely on an older model where it's like word of mouth. You have to leverage something that's gonna drive down your cost per volunteer, whatever metric you're gonna use.
And also, one of the things we talked about yesterday a lot was figuring out what's out there. So even if you don't want to create something on your own, there are a lot of, I mean, I think JDate is a great example, but like that could be a way that you really engage people.
When you talk, tell me more about you were talking about using online as a matching vehicle between identifying a logarithm that sets up the match between the volunteer and the nonprofit organization. That one of the challenges with a model like that, which is sort of a referral model, is that you don't really have any control over the service itself, either the quality or the service learning or the Jewish connection of the service.
I think the response to that would be your fellows would be selectively creating the service opportunities, and then therefore you can ensure quality control.
So I heard this a few times, this idea that there's lots of different things happening in the community. Are we better off with our fellows focusing on one big kind of volunteering opportunity with lots of different slots for volunteers to fill in and then ultimately over a period of time? Or are you better off focusing on, you know, a whole bunch of different little projects?
I think you have to be doing both because some people aren't gonna initially want to commit to a longer term project.
I'm sorry, I don't think you heard. So what I'm talking about is you do a long-term project, but you also have the opportunity to volunteer on that project for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Or to bring a school, or to bring a social club.
You sort of have to acknowledge that there are like different levels of depth that people are willing to go to, and maybe you're able to transition them from one layer to another. But I think given the nature of like a lot of our mindsets, we're sort of like, we want what we want, and if it's not what I want, I'm not gonna do it. So if I want a service day and you're asking me for 3 service days, I mean, I've gotta have those options
Right.
built into that technological platform that allows me to select each
So
one.
if I do that in one particular area, because you also are focused on a regional or city-based model, do you go into one city, say we're gonna blow out education, or are we gonna go into one city and have one set of things on environment, one set of things on education, one set of things on elderly care, one set of things on preschool?
I think options are great, but I also like the idea, we didn't get to talk about it much as a group, but I personally like the idea of this long-term project where if I work on, you know, say I did the painting, I painted the inside of the school that we're building, kind of like the idea of constantly getting updates and little anecdotes from other people that are finishing the project. I think that could be a way to continue the connection, but I also think that having that selection is important because people are more likely to work on a project that they feel links with what they're passionate about.
Or you could choose 3 or 4 themes. I mean,
Right.
it's not like you have, projects that kind of run the gamut. You could have like an education project, an environment project, a health project, and like people will be able to choose from among those.
And how important is it that those projects be repair projects? Or could we do one partnership with the Jewish, with the Jewish Literacy Coalition, another project with Habitat, and a third project with the Social Delivery?
I mean, if you can jump on and leverage an existing platform, I mean, that's just gonna lower your overall costs.
Yeah.
I mean, you might as well.
Yeah, in
You might
the
as well
same
do
way
that.
that like corporations take a service group and
Will
go
the
to
volunteers
Habitat
think of
for-
themselves as repair volunteers, or are they gonna think of themselves as Jewish Literacy or Habitat or
I think it
other?
would get your name out there though, because the more people that are part of it, the more recognized your brand.
It depends on the context.
Thank you very much.